Okay, I want you to picture the scene. It's the dead of night, maybe 3:00 a.m., October 26, 1984. You're on the German Autobahn. It's dark, it's cold, and two truck drivers are just, making their way down the A45. Then they spot it. A car in the ditch, a VW Golf.
Looks like a standard accident, right? Someone nods off, slides off the road.
So that's what you'd think. So they pull over to help. But what they find isn't just a crash. It's the opening scene of a nightmare that has kept detectives and a lot of internet sleuths awake for 40 years.
It's one of those cases where the more you dig, the less you actually know. You go in expecting a drunk driver or a sleepy commuter. Instead, you get a naked man, a cryptic code, and a stranger who just vanishes into the night.
Exactly. This is the case of Günther Stoll, but you've probably heard it called the Yogtze case. And honestly, calling it a case just feels like a massive understatement. It's a full-blown cryptographic puzzle wrapped in a murder mystery.
It really is.
So today we're diving deep into the police files from '84, the internet's obsession with all the clues, and a very recent, and I think very controversial, official update from 2025. That, spoiler alert, I'm not so sure I buy.
I'm definitely skeptical of that new update, because when you strip away all the theories, you're left with a set of, physical facts that just don't fit together. It's a locked room mystery, but the locked room is a wrecked car on the highway.
And the evidence suggests something much, much darker than a simple accident. So our mission today is to really dissect this timeline. We need to try and figure out, was Günther Stoll a man losing his mind, or was he a man who was genuinely being hunted?
So let's start with him. Günther Stoll, 34 years old, from a town called Anshausen in Germany.
And his profession is key here, isn't it?
Right, context is everything. He was an unemployed food engineer. Now, that might sound like a mundane detail food engineer, but you need to keep a pin in that. It becomes incredibly relevant when we start digging into some of the espionage theories later on.
But in the weeks right before his death, Stoll wasn't working. He was, by all accounts, unraveling. The sources describe a man who felt like he was under siege.
But the siege was mostly in his head, or at least that's how it looked. He kept telling his wife that they were coming.
The classic ominous they.
Exactly. It's a classic signifier in chronicle paranoia. He never gave names. It wasn't the government or the mob, just they. He was convinced he was being followed, that people were out to harm him.
And to his wife, this must have just looked like a severe mental health crisis, maybe paranoid schizophrenia starting to manifest.
Which is a tragic, but, a completely understandable way to see it. Until the night of October 25th, 1984. This is the moment where the story just pivots from a medical issue to a thriller.
It's late, around 11:00 p.m. Stoll is in his armchair, just brooding.
And then suddenly he snaps out of it. He literally jumps up. This isn't a man cowering in fear anymore. He shouts, "Jetzt geht mir ein Licht auf."
Which translates to something like, now I've got it, or now a light goes on.
Yeah, exactly. It's an epiphany. It implies he wasn't just suffering from this vague dread. It's like he was working on a puzzle in his head, and he just found the solution.
And this is where we get the name of the case. Immediately after shouting that, he grabs a piece of paper and scribbles down 6 letters. Yogtze.
Or, and this is important, depending on how you interpret the handwriting, the G could be a 6. So Y-O-6-T-Z-E.
He writes it down, he stares at it for a second, and then he crosses it out violently.
See, that detail is crucial to me. You write something down to remember it, you cross it out when you realize it's wrong, or maybe when you realize it's dangerous. Why would you write a code and then immediately try to destroy it?
And the real tragedy is, we don't have the paper itself. His wife, thinking he was just having another episode, threw it away. She only remembered the letters later for the police. So this entire mystery hangs on her memory of those 6 characters.
But whatever he wrote and whatever he realized, it propelled him out of the house. He didn't go to bed. He got in his white VW Golf and just drove off.
This kicks off what I call the timeline of weirdness. He heads to his favorite pub, the Papillon, in Wilnsdorf. But he's not there to, have a beer with friends.
No. Witnesses say he walked in, ordered a beer, and before he could even take a single sip, he just fell off his bar stool, literally face-planted onto the floor.
Oh, was he drunk?
That's the thing. Witnesses swore he was stone-cold sober. He hadn't even touched the drink. He just fell, injured his face, got back up, and walked out.
Paints a picture of someone whose nervous system is just completely overwhelmed. Is that terror? Was he drugged?
Yeah.
Or is it a physical symptom of a psychotic break? It's just so unsettling.
He leaves the pub, gets back in his car, and drives to his childhood hometown, Hagerseelbach. It's 1:00 a.m. now. He goes to the house of an elderly woman he knew from his childhood, a woman named Erna Helfritz.
Right, she was a deeply religious woman, almost like a safe harbor for him.
It's a common behavior in a crisis, isn't it? You seek out a maternal or a spiritual protector. So he's banging on her door at 1 in the morning.
He's panicked. He tells her a horrible incident is about to happen.
And note that phrasing. Not that he is scared, but that an event is imminent. It's a premonition.
Mrs. Helfritz, quite sensibly, refuses to let him in. I mean, it's 1 a.m. She tells him to go to his parents' house, which was nearby.
But he doesn't go to his parents. He gets back in the car.
Right.
And from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m., just silence.
The missing 2 hours. This is the black hole of the investigation. He completely vanishes.
Yeah.
And when he reappears, he's 100 kilometers away on the Autobahn.
That's a long drive. He wasn't just cruising around the block. He was actively putting distance between himself and something.
Yeah.
Or someone.
Which brings us to the crash site. 3:00 a.m. The truck drivers, Holger Meffert and Jor Konsler, find the car in the ditch. Now, I really want to focus on this part because the 2025 update tries to just brush this aside, and I'm just not having it.
The truckers saw someone else?
They did. Both truck drivers, independently, and this is key, they didn't coordinate their stories. They both reported seeing a man in a white jacket just walking around the wrecked car.
A man in a white jacket? A lab coat, perhaps?
Could be. But here's the kicker. As the truckers got closer, this man just vanished. He walked away into the dark, away from the scene, didn't ask for help, didn't check on the victim, he just left.
So the truckers finally get to the car, and they find Günther Stoll, but he's not in the driver's seat.
He's in the passenger seat.
And he is stark naked.
Completely. On a freezing cold October night.
I know we see a paradoxical undressing in cases of hypothermia where people feel hot as they're freezing to death and strip off their clothes. But usually, you find the clothes.
Exactly. If he stripped in the car, the pile of clothes should be on the back seat or on the floor. If he stripped outside, they'd be on the road somewhere. The police searched the area extensively. Stoll's clothes were gone. Never found.
So he's there, naked, dying in the passenger seat. But he's still conscious. The truckers ask him what happened, and Stoll gives them his dying declaration.
He says there were 4 men. He claimed they were in the car with him. He said they beat him loose, which is a very strange phrase, but it roughly means they beat him up, thrashed him, and then they ran away.
The truckers asked if these men were his friends.
And Stoll just shook his head and said no.
Yeah.
And then he died on the way to the hospital.
Okay, so just to recap, we have a naked victim, a missing stranger in a white coat, and a dying confession about 4 attackers. But wait, it gets even more complicated.
The autopsy.
This is where the case goes from just strange to impossible. The original 1984 autopsy was done by experienced forensic pathologists. They examined Stoll's body and they found catastrophic injuries. But, and this is the part that has baffled everyone for decades, the injuries did not match the car crash.
How is that even possible?
Yeah.
He was found in a crashed car.
The car crash itself was relatively minor. I mean, the car was in a ditch, yes, but the passenger cabin was pretty much intact. Stoll's injuries, specifically the types of fractures he had, suggested he'd been run over by a heavy vehicle. Yes. But here's the twist. There was no blood or tissue on his own car to suggest that his car ran him over. So the forensics team concluded he was run over by a different vehicle at a different location.
So, let me try to reconstruct that theory. Someone runs him over, well, he's naked, I guess, or they strip him after. Then, instead of just leaving him there, they pick up his broken, dying body. They put him into the passenger seat of his own VW Golf. They drive him to the Autobahn. They crash the car into a ditch to stage an accident, and then they flee.
It sounds like the plot of a spy novel, doesn't it? It suggests a completely staged scene. Why else would you move a dying man back to his own call unless you want to hide where the actual attack took place?
But it's so messy. If you're a professional hit squad, why leave him alive long enough to talk to truckers? Why leave him naked, which just guarantees a full-blown murder investigation?
That's the friction point. The 4-man theory explains the injuries and his dying words, but it doesn't explain the sloppiness. Why not just finish the job?
Before we get to the 2025 update, we have to talk about the note, Yogtze. If we assumed for a second that Stoll wasn't just hallucinating, what could it possibly mean?
There are, I think, 2 main theories that actually hold some water, and they pull the case in 2 very different directions. First, you have the radio theory.
The Iron Curtain angle.
Right. If that G is actually a 6, you get YO6TZE, and that is a legitimate amateur radio call sign from Romania.
And in 1984, Romania is a communist state. Cold War tensions are at a peak.
Was Stoll involved in something? Was he listening to shortwave number stations? Was he some kind of low-level spy? It fits the paranoia perfectly. They really were coming for him, but there's zero evidence he owned a radio or had any of that kind of training.
Which brings us to the second theory, which I find so fascinating because of his job. The food theory.
Stoll was a food engineer. In that industry, YOG is a common abbreviation for yogurt, and TZE is apparently a code for a specific flavoring additive.
So YODTZE could literally mean yogurt flavoring PZE.
Industrial espionage was a huge thing in the 80s. Stolen formulas, poison supply chains. Imagine Stoll stumbles upon a document. He realizes a batch of yogurt is being poisoned, or a secret formula is being stolen.
Now I've got it. He solves the puzzle. He writes down the code for the tainted additive.
And then he has that horrifying realization, if I know this, they're going to kill me. So he crosses it out, and he runs.
And think back to the man in the white coat seen by the truckers.
Who wears white coats? Food engineers, lab technicians. I know it's circumstantial, but it aligns eerily well.
So we have these incredible theories, spies, yogurt conspiracies, a staged murder. It's a perfect mystery. But then we have to deal with the reality check. In April 2025, the German authorities decided to close the file.
And this is where we really need to be critical. The 2025 update basically tries to wash away all the mystery with modern science. Their conclusion, it was a tragic accident fueled by a psychotic episode, period.
They re-examined the crash physics, right?
They did. Using modern 3D modeling, they argued that the 1984 autopsy was wrong. They claim that because Stoll wasn't wearing a seatbelt, the sheer force of the impact threw him around the car's cabin so violently that it mimicked the injuries of being run over.
So they're saying he wasn't run over somewhere else. He was injured right there in that ditch.
Correct. And they also tested the car for DNA using the latest, most sensitive technology. They found nothing. No foreign DNA. No four men.
So their official narrative is this. Stoll has a mental breakdown. He writes a nonsense word. He drives off erratically. He strips naked due to psychosis or, heat flashes. He crashes. He gets thrown violently into the passenger seat. And in his dying delirium, he hallucinates 4 attackers.
It's the clean narrative. It ties everything up with a bow that says mental illness. But I have huge problems with this.
Oh, me too. Let's start with the most obvious one, the clothes.
The 2025 report completely fails to explain the clothes. Even if we accept their crash physics, which is debatable, and even if we accept the lack of DNA, which degrades over 40 years, where are his pants?
If he's stripped in the car, they're in the car. If he's stripped outside, they're on the road.
Exactly. He was at the pub at 11:30 p.m., fully dressed. He crashed at 3 a.m., naked. Somewhere in that time, his clothes vanished. You can't just wave that away.
And then there's the stranger. The man in the white coat.
The 2025 report suggests this might have been a bystander who just didn't want to get involved.
A bystander at 3 a.m. on the side of the Autobahn, wearing a white lab coat. I mean, come on.
It's absurd. And remember, 2 truck drivers saw him independently. To dismiss 2 eyewitness accounts as a trick of the light or a shy bystander, it feels like they're cherry-picking evidence to fit their accident theory.
And what about the dying declaration? 4 men. Not friends.
The police just say it was a hallucination. And sure, head trauma causes confusion, but it matches his earlier paranoia so perfectly. He warned his neighbor of a horrible incident. Then the incident happens, and he blames the very people he was afraid of.
It feels like the police looked at the lack of DNA and just said, well, we can't prove anyone else was there, so therefore no one else was there.
Which is a logical fallacy. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, especially with a car that's been sitting in storage for 40 years. Who knows how many people have touched it? Who knows how contaminated that scene really was back in 1984?
So we're left with 2 main paths here. Path A, the accident. Stoll loses his mind, creates a nonsense word, crashes his car, and dies alone.
It's the Occam's razor approach. It's the simplest explanation, but it leaves way too many loose ends.
In Path B, the hunted. He found something out. Maybe the yogurt formula. He was intercepted. The scene was staged. The lack of DNA is because the killers were professionals who knew how to clean up after themselves.
But there is a third path, isn't there? A sort of synthesis. What if it was both?
How do you mean?
What if he was mentally ill and he was the victim of a crime?
A crime of opportunity.
Imagine he's having a serious breakdown. He drives erratically to the Autobahn. He strips naked out of panic or confusion. He stops the car. He tries to flag down a vehicle for help.
And the people who stop aren't good Samaritans.
Exactly. Maybe it's a car with 4 guys in it. They see a naked, confused man with a nice car. They beat him up. They rob him. Maybe he crashes while trying to escape them. and they just run away.
That would fit the dying declaration for men, not friends. It fits the injuries. And it also fits the mental instability.
It's the unlucky theory. You can be paranoid about them and then run into a completely unrelated group of just bad people. The universe can be cruel like that sometimes.
It effectively means his paranoia became a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. He was so afraid of being hurt that his erratic behavior put him in a position where he actually got hurt.
Whatever the truth is, the 2025 update feels so unsatisfying because it tries to sanitize a very messy reality. We hate unsolved puzzles. We hate the idea that a man can shout, "I've solved it," and then die without ever passing on the answer.
It really does feel like the last page of the mystery novel was just ripped out.
And simply writing, "It was all in his head" on the back cover just doesn't satisfy anyone who looks at the actual detail.
But just keep coming back to that note. Yogtze, even if it was nonsense, the way he treated it matters.
Crossing it out.
Yes. Why cross it out?
That's the detail that keeps me up at night. A madman might scribble nonsense, sure, but crossing something out is an act of editing. It's an act of hiding. You only hide things that have value, or things that are dangerous.
If the police are right, and it was just a tragic accident, then where did his clothes go?
And who is the man in the white coat walking away into the dark?
Those are the questions that keep this case alive. We'd love to hear your theories on this. Is it a radio code, a yogurt additive, or just a sad ghost story?
And if you happen to be driving on the Autobahn at 3 a.m., maybe just keep your doors locked.
Definitely. Thanks for diving deep with us on this one. We'll catch you on the next one.